The U.S. is forcing the whole world to the table. Is the whole world about to be harvested together? The moment Blinken's talks with Iran collapsed, this was no longer just a diplomatic failure. Many people are still focused on who won or lost the negotiations. But the U.S. has already flipped the board. You say you're going to block the Strait of Hormuz, Iran? Then I won't play by your rules. America's response was simple and brutal. If you can choke the throat, I'll squeeze the entire windpipe shut. And so the front expanded outward. The Gulf of Oman came into the crosshairs. Mark this step, it's crucial. If the Strait of Hormuz is the most sensitive choke point for global oil shipments, then the Gulf of Oman is the respiratory system. Outside that choke point, Iran targets a single point. The U.S. targets the entire area. This means the nature of the conflict has completely changed. What began as a standoff between Iran and the U.S. has escalated into a fight. Whoever controls energy routes controls the global economy. Many people haven't caught on yet. They think this is just military deterrence. It's not, it's rewriting the rules. Think carefully about one question. If Iran really blocks the Strait of Hormuz, who gets hurt? Europe, Japan, South Korea?
是一大片高度依赖中东石油的经济体。那美国现在这一步呢？
It's not bailing these countries out. It's sending them a message. Your energy security is not your decision to make. You think the U.S. is fighting Iran? Wrong. What the U.S. is really targeting are the countries still sitting on the fence, refusing to take sides. That's the most dangerous part of this game. Many countries are now condemning with words, staying neutral in action, and continuing to buy oil. But the U.S. just cut off that middle path entirely. You don't pick a side? Too bad. You lose your right to stable oil supplies. This is classic American game theory. Create uncertainty to force you closer. Dig a little deeper. Why does the U.S. dare to do this? The answer is realistic. It doesn't fear the consequences. America's energy mix has fundamentally changed in recent years. After the shale oil revolution, U.S. oil production surged. Combined with its strategic reserves, it can easily withstand shocks in the short term. In other words, an oil cutoff is a crisis for others, but just a cost for the U.S. Europe is different. Japan and South Korea even more so. Many emerging economies, too, remain highly dependent on Middle Eastern energy. This creates an extremely asymmetric situation. The U.S. can play with risk. Other countries can only run from it. And now the U.S. is amplifying that risk. You don't stand with me? Then I'll destabilize the entire market. Until you can't take it anymore and come to me. This isn't military deterrence. It's economic coercion on steroids. And this move has an even more hidden goal. Many people overlook one thing. Energy is not just a resource issue. It's a financial issue. Oil settlements, shipping, insurance, and trade routes are all backed by the U.S. dollar system. When risks are artificially created in these routes, the first thing to fluctuate isn't oil wells, but prices. And when prices fluctuate, which financial system has the strongest capacity to absorb capital? The U.S. So you see a clear logical chain. Stoke tensions, drive up oil prices, spark market volatility, capital flows back into the U.S. dollar system. That's the full closed loop. On the surface, it's blocking routes. In essence, it's harvesting global liquidity. This is far smarter than pure military action. Iran's blockade is a move against the U.S. This U.S. move is restructuring the order. One is a tactical move. The other is a strategic layout. That's the gap. Back to Iran. Many see Iran as pushing back hard. But in reality, it's been drawn into a much bigger trap. Because if tensions escalate, Iran won't just be facing the U.S., but a whole group of nations hit by energy disruptions. Public opinion, diplomatic, and economic pressure will all pile on. In short, the U.S. is turning Iran's problem into the world's problem. And once it becomes a global issue, the U.S. gains far more room to maneuver. That's what it really wants. So look back at the initial collapse talks. Was it really just a failure? Or was it never meant to succeed? Often, negotiations are just a window of time. The real moves happen outside the negotiating room. And now the U.S. has laid its cards on the table. What happens next? Two tracks at once. One, tensions keep rising. But don't spiral fully out of control, because all-out conflict is unaffordable for everyone. Two, the energy market swings violently. Prices, supplies, shipping, all enter high uncertainty. And what ordinary people feel isn't aircraft carriers or missiles, but gas station numbers creeping higher. Business costs rise, prices pass through to consumers, and it lands in everyone's daily life. So the real nature of this crisis is never a distant geopolitical conflict. It's a classic case of reshaping the economic order through brinkmanship. I'll leave you with one question. If energy routes can be weaponized at will, is the future world only about military power? Or is it about who can control uncertainty, and thus control the rules?